This is episode 190 of the Wildlife Photography Podcast. In this episode, Q&A. Hey everybody, my name is Gerry, I'm from Wild Eye. It's episode 190, which means I'm 10 away from 200. I still remember the day when I read a book and I listened to some podcasts and stuff, and I thought, this is cool, maybe I should do something like this. And here it is, almost 200 episodes. Now, I've got a couple of interesting ideas for episode 200, but I'll share those with you in due course. But 190 is a Q&A, and a week or so ago, I asked on my Instagram for some questions. Now, I've got them all lined up on the screen over here. I am going to run them, every single one of them, maybe longer, maybe not so much, maybe short answers because some are just pretty bizarre. But I'm going to try and answer all of them for you, and then we'll discuss episode 200 down the line. I've already got recorded episode 191 and 192, so as soon as this one's live, every day from now on, podcast coming up, which is pretty sweet. And I think that's pretty much it for now. Let's get right into your questions. Okay, so first one is from Ledorso, which is from, all of these are from Instagram, right? From my Instagram stories. What was your first camera and when did you choose to become a wildlife photographer? Now, the first camera I can remember owning, not film, I played with film with my grandfather many moons ago, but the first camera, hang on, I think I might actually have it here. I'm going to just try and dig in the cupboard and... Yes, look, I do have it here. It was this, right? I'll show you guys as well, yeah? It was a little Sony, whatever the hell this is, steady shot 8.1 megapixel. This is the first digital I bought and I got serious about it. And I thought this was the shit. It was just insane. I actually can't believe I still have that. But this was it. And I started getting more serious about the photography when I was on the ship. So I was working on board the Queen Mary 2. I was managing health and wellness, which is a previous lifetime for me. And that started it all. So the first official DSLR, I shot all the Nikon stuff way back with my grandfather, playing around. This was digital, my first foray into digital as such. And then I got what was the first digital for Nikon? It was D70, I think. No, there was something before then. I bought that in Gibraltar of all places. So that was my first kind of digital step into digital, if you will. I didn't really choose to become a wildlife photographer. Most of my photography started off as travel, places, people, memories and such. And then when I came back from working internationally on the cruise ships and so on, I managed a lodge, safari lodge, and from there, photography and guiding just met. So it kind of found me, and maybe we'll do a deep session on this one day, kind of the whole process of my growth. But that was it. It was this little thing, Sony Cybershot, yeah. And I didn't really choose it, he chose me. So there you go. Next one here. What is this? Najiba.p. What are some common misconceptions on how and what to pack equipment and clothes? I take it this is from a safari point of view. So the best thing I can give you, and people told me this always, right now, let me give you an idea. I will pack for the Masai Mara. If I have to leave for the airport at 10, I'll start packing at 9:30. Because we always pack too much. Always pack too much. You pack too much lenses, you don't use all of them. You pack too much clothing, you don't use all of it. So someone once told me you should put everything on your bed and then take half of it away. Obviously enough underwear and socks because those are important, but you can wash on the go. Buy the right stuff that you can wash while you're on safari. It just works better that way. Gear is the same. People go... I once had a lady who took... She had, this is Nikon, 1424, 2470, 7200, 200, 400, and a 600. And 4 bodies to go with it. Now, she almost missed most of the shots because what lens should I use? I don't know what to do. Simplify. Decide where you're going, what kind of images you want to create, and choose the lenses accordingly. It really is as simple as that. But I think from a misconception how to pack, always try and take less. Best I can give you. Right. Oh, just while we're going here, if you listened to episode 189, what I'm doing now is every 10 episodes will still be a YouTube version like this, but every single episode of the podcast, I'm going to also try and do on Instagram TV. So you can go into my Instagram TV and get a visual of all the podcast. Might be boring as shit sometimes because it's just me talking to a mic, but yeah, just some extra content for you guys. So I might be looking there and there every once in a while. Anyway, next one. Bridget Schultz asked, how do you shake African fever? I'm obsessed after one visit and have to return. Bridget, I can tell you this with 100% certainty, you can't shake it. It's not possible. Once you've been to Africa, you're going to want to come back, and that's what I'm passionate about, is showing people Africa for the first time and again and again and again. So sorry, there is no answer for African fever. Once you have it, you're basically screwed. You have to come back. All right. What have I got here? Sim_Jones asked, what and where did you do your field guiding course? Now, I did my field guiding course. I'm trying to think what year this was. My goodness, late 90s somewhere. So I did mine over a period. I did a whole bunch. The main one, I wrote my exam with a guy called, I think it was James Hatfield. And his company was called, I'm going to remember this, Tsavingwi Bush Experiences way back. But I did multiple small courses. So I was doing gymnastics at the time. I was a national gymnast. And I would go and do a birding course in the off season. And I would keep on doing all these things. And then eventually he said, just write the exam. I'm like, I don't want to write the exam. I'm glad I did because the road kept going. We'll talk about this one day. And so that's it. I mean, I'm fully FIGASA qualified level 3 trails guide. And after I did the first level 1, I just kept on going and going and going through different operators. But my first level 1, when I got qualified, was, I'm going to have to go check, late 90s, 99, 98 somewhere. And that was through a place called Tsavingwi Bush Experiences. I know James, who ran it, has, he subsequently moved to Australia, I think. But yeah, if you guys want, hit me up. My email will be at the end of this video. And I'm happy to send you details if you are looking to become a guide. There's some very good courses out there. Next one, Bacchus_SA. That's Kerry she's done migration with us. So Kerry's question is, 2018 migration was totally out of sync. How do you think it will affect the 2019 migration? Now, historically, not last year, so not 2017, not 2016, from then 24 years back, the peak of the migration was always the end of August, beginning of September, those 4 weeks, 2 in August, 2 in September. For various reasons now, the rain has changed. There was fires in Tanzania. Sometimes in Tanzania, they burn fires ahead of the herds because of tourism. Different story. But the migration came super early, and then there was a break, and then big one at the end again. So, Kerry, the best I can give you is I don't know. I honestly don't know. My bet, so I'm lucky enough, I'm hosting 2 migration safaris very early in the season, end of July into August, and another one September. So I'm quite happy with those. Regardless of when you decide to go, you will get, I think, migration action of sorts. You will see some herds. The feeling will be there. When the peak of it will be, I have no idea. I was in the Mara in November this year, up until the 20th. I ran a wildlife photography workshop. We drove onto the other side of Lookout Hill. For those of you that know where and how that works, Lookout Hill's hill on the eastern side of the Mara River, and it's a big part of the migration. There were so many wildebeest there that I don't think I've seen that many wildebeest during peak migration season. So much so that a lot of the local guides there believed that the herds might actually give birth there. Now, that's something that normally happens down in the Serengeti in Tanzania. But I think it might move a week forward or back, but I don't think it's going to change too dramatically. I think if you go end of July through October, you're going to get some action. I do think, however, it's going to peak a little bit towards the end of the season, I think. I'm not sure what's going on in the Mara. If those things have stayed, it could start early. I mean, if the wildebeest stay and the rain start changing and the rain patterns change, some of the smaller herds might come up and they're on the normal kind of schedule. Those ones might just join and off you go. So I'm still betting on a good season all round, but with a small peak early and late in the season. So I'm not sure when you've booked, Kerry, but I'm sure you'll get a crossing or two. I hope so. All right, next one. Where are we here? Stella Starbuck_photography says, photographing lions or any other specific animals like the elephant podcast you did before. Okay, so not a question as such, it's more of a request for a future podcast. I can't remember which episode it was, but I will put it in the description of this podcast as well. I did a podcast on how to photograph elephants, and I definitely will do another one on lions and leopards and polar bears and such. Just the time. I'm going to get more into this. I want to get into the 200-300s on the podcast soon. But yes, so Starbuck_photography, definitely could do more of those. And I dig it. It's fun. But a lot of it to me comes back to animal behavior. That's everything in wildlife photography. So that's all I'm doing in those podcasts is I'm telling you, this is what the animal's going to do. This is what you should do. Put them together. You've got a great image. So more of those, yes, definitely coming up. Next one here, Diane_7970 says, do non-photographers go on your safari trips? Hell yes. Hell yes. So I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of episodes ago rather, in which I spoke about a difference between a safari and a photographic safari, because people think they're different. They're not different. They shouldn't be different, because a photographic safari and a safari differs by degree, not by kind. If my mom goes on a photo safari with me, or if she goes on a normal safari on her own, and she uses her cell phone and she takes a picture of something, she is on a photographic safari. I believe that if you're a non-photographer and you come with me or one of my guides or one of my trips, you will get a better experience, better understanding of animal behavior, better appreciation for the beauty of nature, and as a bonus, you're going to walk away with pretty decent images, even if it's just on your cell phone. So go and check that. I'll link that one up in the podcast description as well. Mental note, elephants and safari. And go listen to that. Yes, non-photographers do come on our trips, more and more actually. And I still believe that a photographic safari for a non-photographer is better than a normal safari for a non-photographer. 100%. Right, next page. We've got 3 pages worth of questions here. I'm clicking through. Shelly_MD. Shelly asks, if you weren't doing what you do, what would you be doing? That sounds like a Dr. Seuss quote. But actually, I thought about this over New Year's. I mean, I'm not the one to go deep and contemplate stuff and life and that. But I think, I dig the travel, make no mistake. I love the travel. But I think if I was not doing what I'm doing now, I would be in my previous industry, but on a different level. So my previous industry, I was in the health and wellness industry. I ran a company called the Institute of Fitness Professionals, and we qualified people to become personal trainers, Pilates instructors, aerobics instructors, and so on and so forth. And I was a personal trainer and a health consultant. So ran my own business on that. So Shelley, I think if I wasn't doing this, I would still be in that industry, but I would be doing to that industry what I'm trying to do with this industry. I think the future is 100% mobile. I think the future is 100% online. And I would have been in that industry. I love my training every day. For those of you that follow me online, make time, yeah? And I would still be there trying to make a difference to that industry and to the people in that industry and to my clients in that industry like I'm trying to do here. So that's probably where I would be. Next one, snapshots of Africa with a whole bunch of underscores in between. What has been your most amazing experience as a wild eye guide? Sure. John and I had a chat about purpose today in the office, and the reason why I think I'm an amazing guide, and the reason I think my guides and our company is an amazing company, is because of the underlying purpose. Now, if you ask me, what is my best experience? I've told the story in the past where many years ago, I think it was one of the first private guided trips I ran for Wild Eye, 2011, 2012 somewhere. I had a client, we went out to shoot stars, long story, it's one of the previous podcasts as well. She forgot her tripod, stars were insane, it was a Medico. I took my tripod, and as we got there, 3 o'clock in the morning, she said, oh shit, forgot my tripod. I gave mine to hers, thinking, fuck, now I can't get my images. Long story, she shot, and I stood next to her as the camera was buffering, and when the image played back, she looked at me, and she said, look what I just did. And in that moment, in that particular moment, I knew that this is what I want to do. I knew that that was my purpose. So from a people point of view, I have many like that. I've had many moments where someone would write an email and say, you know what, that was amazing. People would, at the end of the day, kind of just give you a hug and say, thank you, that was great. That's amazing. If you're talking about wildlife, which I'm sure that's kind of where you're going with this, there's a couple. I mean, there was a polar bear sighting in Svalbard last year that was insane. Madagascar, as a first time, seeing eyes in the wild was pretty damn sweet. There was a lion-buffalo interaction sighting I had in March last year in Sabi Sabi, which I can go on 20 years worth of safari every day. I'll never see that again. So there's so many, and I'm not blasé, but there are so many that they all just kind of start merging into each other, into this beautiful melody of visuals. I don't know what to call it. But yeah, for me, I think it's more about the people. To the point where I haven't paid attention to my photography in a long time. I'm sitting here, I mean, for those of you watching on YouTube here, I've got about 18 trips that I still have to do. I thought to myself, oh, nice, I'm going to do this over New Year's. I'm going to process all my images. That's great. Didn't even come close because I took time for me. So, yes, I can teach photography. Yes, I can inspire photography, but it's about so much more than that. So, when you ask me about an amazing experience, I naturally default to the people. That's just me. But there's some very cool wildlife stuff in between as well. Right, moving on here. Pam Atters, P-A-M-A-T-T-E-S, asks, should one use aperture priority for wildlife photos? If so, when should one change aperture? Okay, that's two questions. The first one, should you use aperture? I believe so, yes. I think it's the easiest. I think it gives you the most creative freedom. It is the most creative technical variable that there is. So I highly recommend my guests shoot an aperture, but I won't change how you shoot. I will just kind of help you to do that better. The question as to when you should change aperture, Pam Attis, tells me that you might have to go look at the basics again. Aperture determines how much of the image is in focus or out of focus from a depth point of view. So if you just want my coffee cup in focus and everything back here out of focus, you use a small f number, which is a large aperture. Okay, here's what you do. For those of you that do not understand aperture and what it does to depth of field, send me an email or ask me on Instagram, and I'll try and find an old blog post and I'll share it with you guys again. But yes, I recommend aperture priority for wildlife because that's the creative variable. And when should you change it? When you want. I don't know. When you think it's right. When the scene you try and create demands it. Those are all right answers. But I think that question means you need to question what you understand about aperture. Anyway, send me that email and I'll try and get that content back onto my Instagram story for you guys soon. Yeah. Next one, going down. M. Grace Preston. Just learning Lightroom and I'm a PC person. Do you think it's necessary to get a Mac? Now, there's two answers to this. Grace is coming to tomorrow. Yes. And I'm seeing you in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it Boston? Anyway, so should you get a Mac? I love Mac. I'm only Mac. Always have been. It's the easiest thing in the world because when it's time to buy a new phone, I don't have to look at Samsung or Huawei or whatever. I just get the new iPhone. I also like Mac because it's easy to use. The screens are amazing. They're powerful. The cool thing though is it's choice. What do you prefer? Mac, PC, BMW, Mercedes, whatever the case is. There is no right answer. I just prefer it. The cool thing with Lightroom though is if you are on a PC and you change to a Mac, Lightroom is a multi-platform program, so it looks the same, works the same. There's one or two small keyboard shortcut differences. Other than that, exactly the same thing. So if you're worrying to change because of Lightroom, don't. Simple process. It's the same on both. Starbuck photography. Again, I think a good podcast topic would be how to have a good Instagram, a good Instagram photography account. Man, I can go down on this one. Keep it real. Just, you know what? I'm gonna bounce this one to a following podcast. I'm gonna call it how to have a good photography account on Instagram. So because there's a lot of stuff, you have to keep it real. You've got to keep people guessing. You've got to engage. You've got to not give a fuck what people think or not care about the numbers, because if you get lost in the numbers, you're going to lose every day of the week. So I'm going to bounce that to a separate standalone episode in the future. That's a very good question. What do we got here? Okay, that's that page done. We're on to our last page here. Shelley asks again, you are awesome at making us add to our bucket list. That's great to hear. Bucket lists are awesome. What is on yours? Shelley, that is interesting because the stuff you see me share is stuff that I've either been to or researched in depth. The more I research new places and trips for Wild Eye, the more I find stuff. Just today, one of my clients, Engen, if you ever watch this, thank you. He sent me some images and details of a trip he did in Jordan. The landscapes are ridiculous. Now, one of the changes that I'm making, not just for me, but we're doing as a shift from a wildlife point of view as well, is not just to focus on just wildlife, because there's so much more. Yes, we're going to keep doubling down on wildlife, and I believe we're one of the best at it, but we're going to add other stuff as well. So I'm looking at a Turkey trip because it's on my bucket list to go back to that. We're looking at Costa Rica. I've been there once. I'm looking at Japan, pandas. Alaska for me is high up there. This stuff I saw from Jordan today, the images were insane. So I don't think I can give you 1 or 10 or 100. I've got a lot of bucket list things. I think if you enjoy travel, your bucket list is never empty, and that's a great thing. Really is a cool thing. Okay, Jenny Suzuki asks, are you planning on doing something specifically different in 2019? Now, I'm not sure what you mean here. Are you talking about trips specifically? Because am I doing anything new this year? Most of the new planning, I think, is for next year. Yeah, most of the new trips that I'm putting together and that we're putting together for Wild Eye is for next year. Me specifically doing different this year. From a personal level, I have taken off quite a few trips. I'm traveling about 70 days less this year because I want to focus on me. I'm talking health, fitness, relationship, just me. But also, I want to go back into the trenches of Wild Eye. I want to get back hand-to-hand sales, marketing. The stuff I did when I started this company, I want to get back to some of that because I think we're at a point where we're going to go next level, and I cannot wait to share that with you. There's some amazing stuff lined up. So from a trip point of view for this year, nothing new specifically. Personal-wise, watch this space. There's a load. Lots of stuff coming up. Where are we here? Christian 52. When is the best time to photograph big cats in Botswana? I'm going to make this easy and say year-round. Because people diss the green season. People diss the shoulder season. I don't want to go then because it's not peak. Here's the news flash. You get better rates and you get very different images. South Luangwa, for example, in the green season is amazing. The stuff you get is just unique. So I can go, and I've been to Botswana pretty much any time of the year, and there's always good game viewing. Historically, and this goes throughout Africa, winter time when there's less water and lower vegetation, or not as thick vegetation, tends to be better. So this is a global statement. You're looking at, I don't know, May through kind of October. But again, you're going to be hard pressed to go to Botswana on a proper safari, not one of these makeshift guys that advertises a trip for 2 weeks for 1,000 rand. You're not going to get cats then. But on any decent safari, you can go any time of the year, and I'm almost guaranteeing you'll see some big cats. The visuals will be different, but that's up to you and to what kind of sightings and photographs you want. So that's also different. Next one here. What is it? Shadi Faris. SHAADIFARIS. Which lodges, camps, parks would you say have the best height for photography? Thanks. No, thank you. So, best camps with best heights. So, there's Jackie's in Madikwe, which is interesting. The problem I have with them is the background sucks. It's always the same. It's against a bank. Bush House in Madikwe is nice, but we're not using them anymore. Various different reasons. Mashatu is well known for their hides. They've got some proper hides. The elephant hide and stuff is amazing. The ones that blew me away now recently was at Kaingo and Mwamba Camp, Shenton Safaris in South Luangwa. They've got, I think, some of the most intimate and real up-close hides. It's not a container or a built thing. It's literally they've built this thing with canvas. So you are, as far as I am from this kind of microphone, from the elephants drinking Impala. So if you had to ask me this 2 years ago, I would probably say up in Mashatu, but from an authentic hide and insane, absolutely insane photographic opportunity point of view, I would look at Shenton Safaris. The other one they've got that they do there as well is they've got a not mobile, semi-mobile, they call it the hippo hide, and they move that along the Luangwa River, and they put it up to where a pot of hippos has its, you say Afrikaans, ek praat eintlik Afrikaans, where they put up their home, the hippos, and then you shoot that. So they've got the carmine bee-eater hide, which is on canoes. They've got a big kind of structure built, and you drift along the banks where the carmines nest. So I think from a combination point of view and diversity of hides, check out Shenton Safaris, or just email me. I do run trips and private guided trips up there. It's pretty damn cool. That to me would be top of the list. Bavilla_travel says, manual or aperture priority? How do you decide? Again, there is no right or wrong answer on this. It's what's the easiest for you. I'm always of the opinion that if I'm shooting wildlife, I want to do as little as possible in my camera. I've got this thing. It does amazing things. You're not going to buy a Porsche and drive it at 10 kilometers per hour. Open that thing up. So these cameras can do amazing white balance, amazing exposure. They know how to calculate shutter speed. So for me, I would rather focus on the narrative, on the animal behavior, than having to worry about multiple dials. However, some of the amazing wildlife photographers the world's ever produced shoot in manual. There's no right or wrong answer. You decide what's easier for you. Nobody, and I've said this in the past, is going to look at an image and say, holy shit, that is amazing. That must have been shot in manual. No, nobody cares. It's what works for you. I prefer Aperture because Aperture for me is the easiest option with the least things I have to change, and I can do everything in Aperture. If you understand that if you scroll your Aperture up, right, so I'm dialing up from f2.8 to 22, my shutter speed comes down, I can now pan, yes, and I can scroll back and I'm back. If I understand that I've got one dial to work with, to do that same thing in manual, you're going to have to do multiple dials. There is no right and wrong answer, it's what you decide. Really is as simple as that. Last one for episode 190 from Strout AHNP. So STROUTAHNP. That's Kurt. From, where is he from? He is from Salt Lake City. Yes, done a couple of trips with him. Wildlife photographers, in inverted commas, who shoot only captive animals, not wild. Cool or not cool? It is probably the most uncool thing I can imagine in wildlife photography. It's a sad thing because so many people do it. It's a pathetic thing that so many wildlife photographers go and do that and then sell it as real wildlife. You know what? If you want to do that, if you haven't got the balls or the ethics or just the common decency to say, oh, I went to a ranch in Montana and they took the Siberian tiger out of its cage and put it in the snow here for me, and they said, sit and look up at this, and I took the picture. If you sell that as real wildlife photography, you're an idiot. You're a complete idiot. I think it's unethical. I think it's not cool. I'm not saying there's not a place for that kind of photography. Disclaimer, I'm not a fan of those places because these are not wild animals. You can do good photography. I know people who run wildlife photography workshops in these parks and they sell it as wildlife. That's also disgusting because it's not real. Call it a photography workshop. It's not wildlife. Or call it an animal or a captive animal workshop. Okay. Thanks, Kurt. You knew this would get me. I think it's wrong. I think in the same way that some people think it's cool as wildlife photographers to pick things up and to take selfies with the snake climbing on them, or picking up the, I don't know, the tortoise or the what they're called, the pangolin. Don't pick shit up. Leave it there. Look at it there. Take a picture of it there. Same way. If you want to be a real wildlife photographer, photograph real wildlife. To me, it's as simple as that. It's, yeah. Let's leave it there because, short version, not cool. It's just not cool. All right, there we go, guys. That is episode 190 of the Wildlife Photography Podcast. Some cool questions. Episode 200. So I'm not sure what direction to go. Some of the thoughts that I've had, I mean, I'd love to hear your guys' suggestion, what you would like to see episode 200, or hear and see episode 200. Thoughts I've had is to get as many of the wildlife guys around the table. We'll have a couple of drinks. You guys send us some questions. We'll discuss it in a group. I did that with episode 100. It was pretty cool. The other option was that Adele, my wife, I actually interview her and we have a chat about what I do and kind of the relationship, travel difficulties and things. Might be interesting. I thought maybe to do something where one of you guys actually interview me for episode 2. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of ideas, but before then, there's other episodes to come out as well. The next one after this, episode 191, is, I think it's, what I call it, is One Species Enough for You? And it's because I think a lot of people bet on multiple species to get the shot, and if you would be comfortable, would you be comfortable to travel for just one species? Maybe miss, maybe not. That's in the next episode. But for now, that's it. I'm going to wrap this one up, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on Instagram TV. Thanks for watching on YouTube. I appreciate your time. And if you want to get hold of me, easy. Gerry van der Walt on all the social media platforms, or just drop me an email, Gerry, Gerry, at wild-eye.co.za, and I'll get back to you. You can also go to my website, gerryvanderwalt.com. Go to media, there's a drop-down menu, and there's a thing called questions. Click on that, and you can ask your questions for the podcast there. It's super, super easy. And like I said in the last episode from 2018, I said, your engagement, your questions, your comment, and your feedback is like oxygen to me. It means the world, and I truly appreciate your time. I will chat to you all in the next episode. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Have a good one. Goodbye.